Well, it tells me that what we're talking about right now is right, that they realize the political peril that they've put themselves into heading into the midterms, that they've done something now that is incited and excited and mobilized the Democratic Party base. You know, for months we've seen stories and prognostications and polls about how Republicans have such a big advantage heading into midterms, how they have an enthusiasm gap, how all the polls say it's against Democrats, how history is against Democrats. Well, now they've done something to ignite the single largest block of voters in the Democratic Party, and on an issue that in some cases is 2-1 against them. I mean, a new poll that just came out by Yahoo and YouGov shows that Democrats have retaken the congressional generic ballot lead in this race. And when given the choice between a pro-choice Democrat and a pro-life Republican, that advantage goes to 13 points on the side of the Democrats. And this is just a week into this, Alex. It's only going to get worse for Republicans, who, by the way, are still going out there, some of them, saying that now they want to go even further, that they want to restrict women's rights to contraception. The extreme lurch to the right that Republicans are embracing right now is going to be one of the single biggest reasons why they make history in November, but they're going to be on the wrong side of it, losing in a huge blow. Talk about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Wow. Adrian, there's also the Democrats in Congress who are now working on that legislation. They want to try to codify Roe, right? But as our Capitol Hill team is reporting, it is unlikely to have anywhere close to enough votes to pass. Democrats are using this as a big rallying cry. Get out and vote in November. But there are Democrats who are saying, hey, we did vote in 2020. The party has controlled Congress and the White House for a year and a half now, and yet passing legislation like this is an overwhelming hurdle. So do you understand that frustration?
Oh, Alex, absolutely. I understand that frustration. We are a big tent party, and unfortunately, when you're a big tent party, you don't always agree on everything. But it's very frustrating, and I completely understand it. But I think it's also at the same time, Alex, very important that Congress take this vote next week, because we need to get members on the record. We need to get members on the record, especially Republicans, in terms of where they support whether or not they want to codify Roe v. Wade. I think that vote is extremely important. But Alex, look, I mean, I hate to be a pessimist here, but we are starting to run out of options as Democrats. There's a chance, of course, that the Supreme Court is not going to overturn Roe v. Wade, but we are certainly not operating under that theory. What we can do now, Alex, is really go down to the states and make sure that Gretchen Whitmer gets reelected in Michigan, making sure that we win the governor's race in Wisconsin, we win the governor's race in Georgia with Stacey Abrams. There are a lot of races that really matter right now, Alex. And by the way, it's not just congressional races, it is these statewide races, because the governors, the attorneys general, the secretaries of state in these states are going to be the ones on the front lines of defending a woman's right to choose in those particular states. So that's where the control and that's where the power really centers right now.
Can I ask you a question, Kurt? Why don't Democrats legislate as relentlessly as Republicans do? And do you think running on what's at stake instead of what they've accomplished is effective?
Well, I think that there's no question, Alex, that Democrats have a record to run on when you look at what they've done with infrastructure, what they've done with COVID relief, what they've done with the economy even. There are things that are historic in terms of the scope and scale and size of what Democrats have actually passed. We got to get out there and talk about that and make that real for the American people. But I think the reason why this Supreme Court situation is so important and such a game changer is this is something that strikes to the very heart of individual freedom in a more tangible way than about a lot of the other things that we talk about day in and day out. When we talk about this election is about, let's say, trying to save democracy or preserve democracy, well, democracy is an idea. That's not something that is as tangible as a woman's right to choose, as a woman's right to make health care decisions, as a woman being forced to go through with a pregnancy that is unwanted. So I think that this issue makes things a lot more concrete for Democrats and for voters in a way that some of these other policy issues, some of these other broader themes are a lot harder to grasp and wrap your arms around. I think that's why for Republicans this is such a danger zone, and that's why, as you alluded to earlier, why Republicans don't really want to talk about this that much.